Well, hello, sports fans. This is Larry Eater with RunBlogRun. Stuart Weir in Oxford, England. I'm in San Jose, California. Oxford is the intellectual capital of the world, just so you know. This is Athletics Chat, your favorite bit of programming each week. And it is episode number 71. Stuart, can you believe it?
71.
Pretty special. Okay, so we were going through the list of topics that were, we always have something to talk about, but this week was kind of an interesting one. So I'm going to obviously talk about the Chicago and Boston marathons, which happened within 24 hours, and some interesting things there. Just interviewed the executive director of the Chicago Marathon, Carrie Pinkowski. Some good things there too. But I want to start with, I want to talk about Charlotte Purdue for a minute. And people in the UK were really, really happy at how well she did. I've watched the social media conversations on Athletics Weekly and on some of the other running sites. I think the general consensus is that it would have been really nice if she had been named to the Olympic team, and that she used that frustration as a way to build up and run an absolutely brilliant time, the 2:23:26. As much as people say London is a fast course, I'm not really sure it is. I think it's a very honest course, and to run the number 3 time in history. And for me, the whole thing was listening to Amara Yamachi, who was getting a little nervous those last couple minutes because she thought she might be taken off as the number 2 ever. Why do you think that was such a big deal in the UK?
I just think it was a great run, and the way that she paced herself, or also was paced by Eilish McColgan, she just ran such a good, clever race. And I mean, we talked about selection procedures before, and once you have a selection by choice of the selectors, it's always going to be controversial. In Charlie Purdue's situation, there is some evidence that misleading information may have been given to her, given to the selectors, in terms of it being suggested that the reason that she wasn't selected was questions about her fitness. And she has pointed out that on the day of the selection meeting, she ran for 90 minutes. So, and that she had followed the advice not to run the trials, and that wouldn't disadvantage her because we didn't want her to aggravate injuries so close to Tokyo, and then not to select her. So, and then, conditions were quite difficult in Tokyo, but none of the British runners really did that well. And so to see her come through with such a good time, one just felt that she had been harshly treated. And she, as you say, she had responded in the best possible way, not by shouting her mouth off, but by going out and running such a great race that she has already now got a place in the World Championships next year, if she chooses to take it up, and she can have a place in any of the 3 championships. So, I mean, she's gone about the right way, and she's been dignified. I mean, she said what she thought, but she's done it in a gracious and dignified way. So I think it's all that put together.
Good. Also, wanted to talk about Keely Hodgkinson. Is she universally loved across the UK?
I think so. I mean, quite honestly, this time last year, I had never heard of her. Then she went out in January and ran that age group record. And I mean, at that stage, they were saying she was going to go to the World Juniors. And then, as she suddenly went out and won the European indoor, you know as well as I do, it's one thing to be in the right race and to run a good time. But she went out in the European indoors against far older, far more experienced athletes and technically got it absolutely right. That she tucked in and then ran past them. So suddenly you're thinking, hang on a moment, she's a bit better than just an age group runner. And then if there was a decision to be made about whether she should try for the Olympics or stick with the plan to go to the World Juniors, Britain then decided that Nairobi was not a place where we wanted to send a team in the middle of a pandemic. So she goes in the British trials. And she's up against Laura Muir and Gemma Reekie. And Laura makes a run for home for 200 meters. Gemma follows her. Keely is nowhere. And suddenly Keely appears and overtakes both of them to win the trials. And then in the Olympics, she again times her run to perfection. Against far more experienced athletes to take the silver medal. And I mean, as I wrote in my piece, if you had asked her in the beginning of the year, what will you be doing in October? Going to the premiere of the Bond film was probably not on her radar remotely.
No, and then I saw her, I think, in an Aston Martin. Driving around, and she was obviously, like any 19-year-old, was totally digging that. So,
well, there's a story behind that because she has a millionaire sponsor, who has put money into athletes, and so he has helped her, and she didn't have a driving license.
Yeah,
and he said that if she got to the final, he would pay for her to have driving lessons.
wow.
And then the joke was, well, what's the point in having driving lessons if I don't have a car? Are you going to buy me a car? And then she actually said, I've seen one I quite like. It's an Aston Martin.
Wow.
And apparently he rose to this by saying, I'll rent an Aston Martin for the day for you.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I saw something in the social media world, and I wanted to see if you had checked into it about our friend Holly Bradshaw, the Olympic medalist. Nice to say that. There was something about the uniforms that she didn't like, and she went back to the Federation, was able to get it fixed. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. When she saw the uniform that the British track and field had chosen for the Olympics, it was a two-piece with quite short shorts and with just a sort of crop top. And she went back to them and said, look, why do I have to wear such short shorts, such short, tight shorts? Why do I have to leave my midriff bare? You're not asking Jake Whiteman to do that. You're not asking Josh Kerr to do that. Why are you asking me to do that? And she then was allowed to run in, she was allowed to compete in what is effectively the rowing kit, which was produced for the rowing team. And so she had a one-piece thing. But yeah, I mean, it was a good stand that she made. That, why am I being asked to compete in a quite a revealing costume in a way that you don't ask the male athletes to?
It's really true, and it's really important. It might be something that we want to do for a story down the road. I mean, I always liked her, and I just think that she's got a great attitude. I think she's one of the unsung athletes. I mean, you write about her, and AW does, but her build to go from a good pole vaulter to a world class to a medal contender every time she's there. It is a great, and Scott Simpson does not get the credit that he deserves. Between her and Harry, I would love to talk to that gentleman too, because I find those, Brits are doing great. Obviously, middle distances. You have had great long jumpers and Greg Rutherford. Here's one about Greg. You and I've talked about Greg for years, and we always said that he doesn't get the respect he deserves. And I had gotten into one with, and I forgot about this. I needed to tell you about this. I got into a bit of a row last time I was in. My gosh, it was in East Croydon at the hotel. Got to be 17, maybe. And two of the American managers were giving me trouble about Greg, and they said he's just a lucky guy. And I smiled at him and I said, well, he's lucky a lot. He's got 2 Olympic medals and a European and Commonwealth, and and the worlds. And the thing to me was that it's not how far you jump, it's not how fast you run. It's if you can perform in the conditions that you're given on that day.
Well, on the Olympic, the 2012 Olympic final, he was being coached by Dan Pfaff.
Right.
And Dan said to me, I reckon that Greg was about the 4th best long jumper in that final, but he was the one who worked out what the wind was doing and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And, I think exactly what you say, deal with the conditions on the day you get them. But sorry, can I just be clear who we're talking about? We're talking about Greg Rutherford, the bobsledder. That's the person, isn't it?
Yes, the bobsledder who used to do the long jump. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was just good.
I was going to say that I remember Zurich was one of the great ones that was the Zurich 2014 European Championships, which Greg had won, and came in to address the press and said, well, gentlemen, I flipped another one.
Greg I just sent him a note and asked him if he could do the bobsled in his backyard too. I know he could do long jumps, so let's see if we can get a bobsled run back there. Boy, his wife or girlfriend would really, really like that. That would probably go over well. Wanted to ask you about you just brought something up that was kind of Adam Jamili. So Adam got hurt in Tokyo, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. How is he doing? Have you heard anything?
I have not had any contact with him. I mean, the last conversation I had with him was actually at the Tokyo airport, where I said, sorry, happened, and he just shrugged his shoulders and said, that's track.
No, was he a rugby player before he did track and field?
Soccer.
Okay.
He was with a professional club. I don't know if he actually had a professional contract, but he was on his way there.
Okay.
But then he started sprinting instead.
Has anything more come, Stuart, of the controversy recently about some coaches not having their contracts renewed? Have you heard anything more on that?
Well, there has been some announcement this week about Benjamin is leaving, and that Darren Campbell is now going to be the sprints and relay coach. I mean, again, he's a gold medalist in the relay, but he wasn't coaching at the time when he was brought in by Christian, and sort of some people would say that's a bit of a slap in the face for those who are coaching year in, year out, that you choose somebody, okay, he's won an Olympic gold medal, but he's not out on every Tuesday night with a group of athletes. So they're now advertising, they're about to advertise for some jobs in the coaching setup, but the details have not yet come out. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that letting Stephen Maguire go to be a performance director in Ireland was a disastrous mistake, which sadly will come home to roost at some point.
Yeah, yeah. No, I share that. I think that I'm very concerned in the direction that UK or the British athletics is going right now. I think that you have a tremendous number of athletes, not only just about ready to perform, but in the pipeline for 2024 and 2028. And they need to be carefully nurtured. And I'm not sure if there's people with the life experience or the coaching savvy to know what to do. I mean, I have the same issues over here right now. We just lost the communications department at USATF, and I'm heartbroken. They were both wonderful young people who really helped me out, and while I know that, yes, you can get new people, it's I've watched some really key people go through. I mean, like Jill Gear, who was in charge of communications, who could infuriate me like few other people could. But the thing was, she also could stand up to a bunch of male relics who were asking her questions. And now she's gone from track and field to an education group, and now she's doing gymnastics. And I'm going, dear God, track and field trained her for that, But so it's just kind of an interesting thing. In your group, I still think the group at British Athletics that you had up until 18 or 19 was one of the best in the world,
Yeah, but apparently we don't need them anymore because we don't do that kind of media stuff. Wow. I think it's a disaster. I think it's very sad, but there we are.
Yeah. Do you recall the numbers for London? I seem to recall it was just under 40,000 normal humans that ran on Sunday the 3rd, and then there was close to 50,000 in the virtual.
Yes, something there. I think it was 35,700 who finished on the actual course. Yeah. I suspect there was more than that in the virtual, because those are only the ones who actually registered and who did it on the day. So I think it could well be more than that. But yeah.
For the Chicago Marathon, they had, as of this morning, about 26,700 actual finishers, another 20,000, I believe, in the virtual. And then for Boston, the numbers we got were, about 22,000 in the virtual and about 20,000 in the actual. Both of those races were quite humid, but in Chicago, it was very, very interesting in that Ruth Chepngetich was way ahead of Bridget Koskai's world record pace there, and up until about almost 20K, and then she kind of evened out, and then she kind of slid back with the heat. And on the men's side, it was Seifu Tura. And I got a charge out of him because obviously he's run some big races, but he had, Galen Rupp was actually in pretty darn good shape at 206.35 to Tura's 206.12. And Galen didn't give up. I mean, he fought the whole way through. It was a fascinating men's race. The women's race was wonderful too, in that Emma Bates and Sarah Hall went 2-3. Actually, Americans went 2-3-4. The strange one was the wheelchair event, because the majority of the athletes, Tatiana McFadden, she won in Chicago, and then she flew with everybody else, including David Ramachuk, and Marcel Hug, to lovely Boston. They finished the race about 8:30, and an hour and 15 minutes later, they were on a plane flying to Boston. There were some weather issues too, but they got in and they competed. Boston's a lovely course, but my friends in Boston told me that virtually no one was in the expo. I mean, Adidas almost sold out of all their clothes, as they do, but a lot of it was online. All the races required vaccinations, and if you weren't vaccinated, you had to test negative to compete. And so I don't think the whole spirit is there, but it's getting close. And then our friend Elaine Flanagan, who ran Berlin and then she ran London the week later. She ran Berlin in 2:38, London in 2:35, Chicago in 2:46, in New York in 2:40. She's got the virtual Tokyo next weekend, and then on the early November, she's got the New York City Marathon. So that's a very impressive little schedule,
Absolutely. By the way, since you mentioned vaccination, I just wanted to introduce into the conversation that I am now triple vaccinated, which I thought was a requirement really to be on the program. So I made sure I've been triple vaccinated.
I'm going back to Wisconsin to do that, my friend. I've got to go back in the next couple of weeks, because the chance of getting vaccinated in California, I think right now they're doing an incredible job in California. I mean, the numbers are down, but Wisconsin, I've got a better shot of actually getting a shot. So I've got to do that. So talk to me about, so was it Andy Butchart and his girlfriend is it Lindsay Sharp? Did they just have a little baby?
I know that she's expecting, but I haven't actually seen that they had the baby. So you're ahead of me.
There's pictures on Instagram with him with the little baby in his arms. So it was, unless he's kind of faking it on us, but we'll send them a nice congratulations.
Right. Just before we leave marathons, can I just say a word about Edna Kipling?
Please. Oh, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
42 years old.
Yep.
And she comes in second. World champion in 2011, 2013, winner of New York, winner of London, winner of Boston, 3 times second in London, second in Chicago, second in Boston. Remarkable lady to produce it. And of course, I mean, she was, I think, was 4th in the Olympics. I mean, she was all, she was thereabouts. But as a person, she's really quite amazing, because she has 5 children, 2 of her own. Then her sister died, and she adopted 2 of her sister's children. And then her next door neighbor died. And so she died in childbirth. And so she took her neighbor's baby and adopted her. I saw a lovely quote from her. I've mentored girls in school and have empowered women. I like to support less fortunate kids and help pay their school fees. So there's somebody who's doing something good. And as well as running marathons, she is in the police force, as so many athletes in Kenya are. But also she and her husband run a farm, because one of the London times I spoke to her in London, rather than going sightseeing, she told me that she and her husband were going to visit an English farm to see what they could learn.
Oh, cool.
And a final thing from her, knowing that she's got a strong Christian faith, I once asked her, do you pray when you're running? And she looked at me and said, Stuart, not just when I'm running. So there was me put in my place.
That's wonderful. Well, I always think it's about what people do that's the most important,
Yeah.
And she's one of those. Am I having a senior moment when I seem to recall her at Daegu in 11?
Yeah, she won.
Oh, that's what I thought, right?
She won in Daegu, she won in Moscow.
Was she at 07 or Osaka or not?
She didn't get a medal. She might have been there, but she didn't come in the top three.
Yeah,
but London, 2017 London, she came second, and she was leading and just lost it over the last mile or two, I recall.
She looked brilliant, and when she ran in Boston, she really doesn't run a bad Boston. And the young woman who won, how am I going to mess her name up? Diana Chepagai. Chepugai, excuse me. Diana was having a battle, but I'll tell you, when Edna took off, she just flew over those last couple miles. And you just wonder how tough she is, because most of us over those last few miles are herding pups. When you have to really compete over the last couple miles, that's a tough one to hold. So it's just, I think it's kind of interesting. The marathons have been inspirational. In talking to Kerry Pinkowski this morning, he's convinced that by next year, the marathon seasons will be back to normal. Unfortunately, our friends in London aren't going to do a spring marathon. They're going to do one in the fall again.
Yeah. Although they've said that the following year, it'll be back to normal.
I understand that Boston is going to go to a spring one this year. And what we were told on TV, and I'll have to say something nice about the TV today. What we were told was that they were going right into the 2022 race and doing the planning. So it's going to be very interesting. And there are, I have no, I completely believe that the first year that the races are held in their traditional time period, that they will set records for participation. Because I'm convinced that Chicago could have filled up to 50,000 and Boston this year. Running is so popular right now, running and walking. I go out and do my 2.5 to 3 miles every day, and I cannot tell you whether I'm here or in Wisconsin. I see people out walking. I see people out running. You see the cross country team kids. It's all out there, and it's nice to see. But what we're told is numbers are up just a little over 30%, which is absolutely fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, I just downloaded the European indoor schedule for 2022 and the World Athletics Indoor Tour. And not only do we have a plethora, think about 35 meets between Europe and the US, and these are just the elite ones. We also have a World Indoor Champs in wonderful Belgrade, Serbia, one of my favorite places. When I went there in 2017, as Alphonse Uke and a couple other riders, that since I was an American, they put me on a special place so I couldn't cause trouble, And
well, I've already asked them if they can put you well away from the rest of us again.
Well, Stuart, your thoughtfulness, your kindness, that attention to detail is what warms the very cockles. And I mean
Thank you.
cockles of my heart, So
I
thank
mean,
you.
also the arena, I think, is one of the best.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the place where we saw Ivana Spanovic just
Yes.
put together I think it was 4 jumps. I mean, it was like Heike Drechsler stuff, from the late 80s. And she's so powerful.
In Zurich, I asked her if she was looking forward to the Worlds, and she told me that she was, and she had very happy memories of the European indoors. So she's planning on putting on a show for you again.
Good.
And the other thing, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the little incident with Laura Muir?
Yes.
Where Laura had just won the race, and some officious steward told her that she couldn't have a lap of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura just dodged her and went off. And Laura said afterwards, "I reckoned if I got past her, she'd never catch me."
No, that was great. That was a lovely championships. I mean, I love that one. I enjoyed Prague in 15. European indoors the European championships are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to get over for one of your cross country champs. Are you going to go to Ireland to see that one or not?
No, I tend not to do cross country.
Really?
But the one negative about Belgrade was that the starter was having a bit of a nightmare.
Yes.
A lot of false starts. I have heard, but I've not been able to verify this, that in one race, a blank lane false started.
Well, you remember Birmingham when we had almost 40 plus false starts, and I just couldn't believe it. And virtually anybody who had not had the time to run that particular track false started. And I remember, was it Oscar, with the Spanish runner who won the Europeans? He had to wait 2 extra years to win a championship because he wanted to get to.
We also had the race in which there were 4 runners in the prelim, and all 4 were DQ'd.
Yes.
So, I mean, if only he had known, he could have just walked around and won the race.
Yeah, no, it was so,
but, I mean,
absolutely bizarre.
I wrote a piece on that, and you put on it one of the best headlines you've ever come up with, which was how the officials can be wrong even when they're right.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have fun doing the headlines. That's how we attract a few people once in a while, And
I mean, and your point was that by the letter of the law, perhaps they were right, but they completely ruined the spectacle by being so pedantic and disqualifying someone whose toenail touched the line when there was no possible advantage gained.
Well, you need to get a pat on the back. You don't even know this. I wanted to share this with you. So do you remember the story you did about 3-4 weeks ago about who the best male sprint hurdler was? Okay.
Yeah.
When we post a story, I then put it on Twitter, then I put it on Facebook, then I put it on my other 4 Twitter sites, and then I put it on Instagram. And between them, we typically, off one of your stories, are getting, 30 to 40,000 impressions. Well, this story blew up because Grant Holloway did not like my pictures of him. And he sent me a note and he said, "Can't you find anything better?" And he didn't like, it was a shot of him in Doha when I think Hansley fell and Omar fell.
Omar fell, yeah.
And so I apologized. I put up 4 really nice pictures of Grant. Mm-hmm. Then I apologized to Hansley, put up 4 of him. Then I did the same thing with Devon, up to him. And then I also did Robert Levy, and Robert, who I loved to watch, Ronald, who I loved to watch race, I found some great pictures of him. And then it just went crazy. Right currently, we're at 202,000 impressions on the story. And I think the whole idea of who's the best male sprint hurdler, I think we should do it for who's the best male 100-meter runner, who's the best, and have some fun with it. So I challenge you to come up with a couple of those a month, and let's have some fun with it. It's just, and what's really nice is that we get so many of the athletes that you and I write about that get a real chuckle out of our comments and pass them around. And we get really nice notes from me. We very seldom, although what did I get the other day? I love Femke Bol. This year she, in 16 races, she set national records 14 times. Phenomenal. Great season. And she rated ahead of Sydney McLaughlin in World Athletics, criteria for their rankings. And my comment was, surely a world record, 2 world records, would put an athlete in the top 10. And an Irish writer wrote back, dear friend, she only raced 3 times. Well, she raced 3 times at the 400 hurdles, but she raced 9 times at other events too. But I understand that, and I tend to agree with this, that the way that European athletics and world athletics and U.S. athletics do rankings, it's just based on how many times you've competed against the other stars. And we need that, but we also need to allow people to have the integrity of Bobby Kersey, who was coaching Sydney. He had her run a couple hundreds. She got a PB there. He had her run 100 hurdles. She set the PB there several times, became a better hurdler. And then he had her run some 400s as well. And then he put her into the hurdles. And she ran the world leader the first time. But I will tell you that I think that you're going to see Femke Bol and Sydney McLaughlin much closer. I think it's great for the sport. And Delilah Muhammad, those 3 are fantastic. And I love the way Sydney and Delilah showed respect for each other in the races, and will not get into the, I'm going to beat her and this kind of stuff. They give each other credit, praise, and it's just classy, and that's how I would expect when I've heard Femke be translated. That's exactly how she's talked. She's a class act, and it's great to see. And then your hurdler, your 400 hurdler who had mishap.
Jessie Knight?
Yeah.
Jessie Knight.
Yeah, I love Jessie, and I felt so bad for her in Tokyo. It just was a simple twist of fate, because she's got a 53 in there, and she will run it at the right time. So that should be kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was very sad, but again, it's a learning experience for her. It was her first major championship, and perhaps, she's got to go. She's got to analyze what happened and come back stronger.
That's true. Well, Stuart, you've survived Athletics Chat 71, my friend, and I'll be posting those pieces on Elaine Doyle and then today and tomorrow. And thank you for that. And I hope you get some golf this week, my friend. I hope there's nice weather in your part of the world. And
fall is turning into winter. I think it's getting a bit cold, but good to be with you, and we'll speak again soon.
Next week, Athletics Chat 72, my friend. All right, this is Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is Athletics Chat. Our friend Stuart Weir is off to enjoy his week. Thank you very much. Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is your favorite program, Athletics Chat. This is number 71. And this is the epilogue, or as our production manager, Mike Deering, calls it, another conversation with Larry. You're so lucky. But I'll keep it at 5 minutes, okay? So let's go. Stewart's in Oxford, England. I'm in San Jose, California. And yes, Oxford, in case John Ridgen doesn't know that, is the intellectual capital of the world. It's not London. London is the media capital, but not the intellectual capital. Anyhow, here's what we're talking about today. First of all, the WANDA, World Marathon Majors, Abbott World Marathon Majors. We call it both. The season, 6 races over 7 weeks, is a little insane because normally we have 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall. Everything's in the fall right now. And we had the Berlin Marathon on the 26th of September. We have had the London Marathon on the 3rd. We have had now Chicago and Boston this last weekend, October 10th and 11th. Chicago, a little warm, but Ruth Chepngetich went out like a bat out of hell, and she was ahead of Bridget Koskai's world record pace up until about 18K. And then she hit about 107.34, so she was at about 2:15.08 pace, and she started slowing down from there. It looked like Sarah Hall's idea of moving into third and then to second and then taking over first was going to play out because Sarah had run a fantastic race. There's actually some segments during the race where you see Brian Hall, her husband, running along the course and telling her what's going on. And the problem was that no one gave that script to Emma Bates. And Emma Bates, who had taken 4th at the Chicago Marathon in 2019, took 2nd this time. Sarah Hall took 3rd. Keira D'Amato took 4th. I believe that there were 6 women, U.S. women in the top 10. It was a fantastic race. And Ruth Chepngetich ran a brilliant time, which is, that course is fast, as executive race director Carrie Pankowski told me this morning. On the men's side, it was a much more competitive race with Sifo Tiru and Galen Rupp and Vincent Kipruto. It came down to 3, and then there were 3 at about 22 miles, just like the Genesis album name. I know, I've digressed. But anyway, what happened was Mr. Tiru started building up a little bit of distance. The problem was Galen was feeling great, and he had a rough race where he finished 8th in Tokyo, dashing his Olympic medal hopes for the 3rd time, for a 4-time Olympian. Not bad, right? But Galen ran one of the best races he's ran in a long time in 2:06:35. Mr. Tiro's time was 2:06:12, and Vincent Kipruto was just under 2:07. The marathon had about 26,700 finishers in Chicago. The wheelchair athletes, Tatiana McFadden won for the 9th time in Chicago, and David Romanchuk won as well for Marcel Hug. They all got their racing wheelchairs and themselves on a plane at 9:45 and headed to Boston and competed in Boston. Marcel Hug won the men's race. Daniel Romanchuk was 2nd. In the women's, it was Manuela Schar and Tatiana McFadden. Manuela went out from the beginning. She had not run Chicago. Tatiana kept it pretty cool. And the Manuela Schar won in 1:35:21. Tatiana McFadden was at 1:50:20, so 15 minutes back. Manuela was trying to get the course record. If she had, that'd have been a $50,000 bonus. And Marcel Hug was within 1 block of getting the record, and then he was taken off course and missed it by a couple seconds. Rather frustrating. But, in Boston, if you don't do it the whole way, you don't get the cigar. So, unfortunately, that's kind of how it played out. But both Boston and Chicago had been fantastic. The same TV crews, Paul Swangard, Kara Goucher, and Chris Waddell emceed at both Chicago and at Boston. And in Boston also, there was a global feed, and we got to see and hear our friend Larry Rawson doing that. The groups that are doing the race at the live, Paul Swangard, Kerry Goucher, Chris Waddell, are doing it with a level of professionalism that hasn't been seen in a long time. They not only know when to talk, they know when to shut the hell up so we can enjoy the race once in a while too. And I think those things are very, very important. And we pat them on the back for that, and we thank them for that. Other things that our friend Stuart and I talked about, Holly Bradshaw, who used the British team uniform for the crew team, I believe, so that she didn't have to wear pretty much bun huggers and a midriff. That wasn't her thing. She asked why Jake Whiteman and Josh Kerr didn't have to wear it. And it's true. There's sexism in our uniforms, that kind of stuff too. So she, I don't know if she was portraying that. She did think that she wasn't comfortable and she didn't want to do that. And so they were able to, British Athletics, to their credit, were able to accommodate her. I thought that was very, very important. And that's a real lesson because not all women want to wear something that's a bare midriff and that's kind of the bun hugger thing. And it's women's sports are sexualized enough. They just don't need to do it anymore. So I thought that was a good comment. I also think that we talked a little bit about Keely Hodgkinson and her chance to drive an Aston Martin and learn how to drive in an Aston Martin. Kind of cool. And then get to go to the 007 opening because she was an Olympic silver medalist. And then also, what's interesting too is to see how Gemma Reike, how Laura Muir, how Keely Hodgkinson have all been shown some respect in their country. The other one I would just want to remind you of is please check out our interview with Kate Grace. It was a lot of fun. One of the most articulate, confident young women that I have seen in our sport in a long time. And I think it's really, really important. Check it out. But we've got a lot of things up on RunBlogRun. And Stuart and I will be back next week for Athletics Chat 72. Stay safe. Thank you again for viewing us. And please pass it around because the more eyeballs, the better. This is Larry Eder, RunBlogRun, Athletics Chat 71, the epilogue. Thanks to Mike Deering, our production manager. Stay safe.